The first words that left the powerful CEO's lips made the entire conference room fall silent. She looked directly at the charity board, folded her arms, and declared that she would never, under any circumstances, marry a single dad because she refused to spend her life carrying someone else's emotional baggage. Less than 24 hours later, one unexpected conversation with a quiet father sitting on a worn park bench would force her to question everything she believed about love, family, and the kind of person she had become. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. Cecilia Hartwell had spent 15 years building one of the most successful architecture firms in the country. Every achievement came through relentless discipline, impossible work schedules, and a promise she had made to herself after watching her own parents endure a miserable marriage. She believed emotions complicated success, relationships distracted ambitious people, and dating someone with children guaranteed a future filled with sacrifice instead of happiness. Those opinions weren't born from cruelty alone. They were built from fear. She had spent years convincing herself that avoiding complicated relationships was simply being practical. Her interview during a business leadership summit spread across social media before lunchtime. When the host casually asked whether she had ever considered dating a single father, Cecilia answered without hesitation. Her words sounded colder than she intended, but she never tried to soften them. Millions of people criticized her before the day ended. Others praised her honesty. She ignored both groups and buried herself in meetings. The following afternoon, Cecilia attended a charity event organized by local businesses to renovate a public community center. She rarely attended these gatherings personally, preferring to send representatives, but her public relations director insisted her recent interview had damaged the company's image. Showing up might remind people she still cared about the community, construction workers, volunteers, teachers, retired veterans, and families gathered under bright sunshine. Children laughed while painting flower pots. Elderly couples planted small gardens. Local musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies. Everything felt genuine, something money alone could never manufacture. Cecilia walked through the event wearing expensive clothes that suddenly felt strangely out of place among ordinary people working with dirty hands and joyful smiles. Near the playground, she noticed a little girl struggling to carry a heavy box of paint supplies. Before anyone else reacted, a tall man wearing faded jeans gently picked up the box with one hand while holding the child's tiny backpack in the other. He smiled with quiet warmth instead of seeking attention. The little girl hugged him without hesitation before running toward her friends. Someone nearby explained that his name was Grant Mercer. Grant wasn't part of the organizing committee. He had simply arrived early because his daughter wanted to volunteer. Cecilia barely noticed him until she overheard another volunteer thanking him for raising his daughter alone after losing his wife several years earlier. The word single dad instantly echoed inside her mind. She almost walked away. Instead, she found herself watching. Grant never tried to impress anyone. He repaired broken benches, lifted lumber, encouraged nervous volunteers, and patiently answered endless questions from curious children. Every task received the same quiet dedication. Hours later, Cecilia wandered toward a nearby park to escape reporters gathering outside the event. Sitting alone on a wooden bench was Grant, sharing sandwiches with his daughter, Marin. They laughed over something simple, probably a joke only they understood. Marin soon ran toward a group of children chasing bubbles across the grass. For the first time all day, Cecilia and Grant were alone. Grant recognized her immediately but showed no excitement. He simply smiled politely. Cecilia expected judgment after yesterday's interview. Instead, Grant surprised her by asking whether the renovation project had met her expectations. His calmness unsettled her. She admitted attendance had exceeded projections. Grant nodded thoughtfully before saying that people often showed up when they believed someone genuinely cared about them. The conversation could have ended there. Instead, something compelled Cecilia to remain seated. She cautiously asked how long he had been raising his daughter alone. Grant looked toward Marin playing beneath the bright afternoon sun before quietly explaining that his wife, Evelyn, had died from an unexpected heart condition when their daughter was only 4. Years old, everything changed overnight. That he had once managed a successful engineering career with long hours and frequent travel. After Evelyn's death, promotions stopped mattering, being present mattered. He accepted a lower-paying local position simply so he could walk Marin to school every morning, attend every recital, every science fair, every difficult doctor's appointment, and every ordinary afternoon that childhood quietly offered. There was no bitterness in his voice, only gratitude. Cecilia listened silently. Grant eventually admitted something that lingered in her heart long after the conversation ended. He said many people assumed single parents wanted someone to rescue them, but most simply hoped to meet someone willing to respect the life they had already built. Those words struck harder than any criticism she had received online. For years, Cecilia had imagined single fathers as people carrying impossible burdens. Grant described something entirely different. He described responsibility, commitment, love that continued even after devastating loss. Over the next several weeks, Cecilia unexpectedly encountered Grant at multiple community projects sponsored by her company. Every meeting happened in broad daylight. Every encounter revealed another layer of the man behind the quiet smile. She watched him comfort a frightened boy after a bicycle accident. She watched him patiently teach teenagers basic woodworking skills. She watched him celebrate every tiny success Marin achieved without ever making the moment about himself. Meanwhile, Grant remained completely unaware that Cecilia had begun questioning nearly every assumption she carried. For the first time in years, business victories no longer satisfied her. The way they once had. Her enormous office suddenly felt strangely empty. She began leaving work earlier. She visited community projects personally instead of reading reports. Employees noticed she smiled more often. She listened more carefully. One afternoon, Cecilia visited the elementary school sponsoring a reading program funded by her company. Parents filled colorful classrooms while children proudly introduced their families. Grant sat beside Marin as she read aloud with remarkable confidence. Afterward, Marin proudly introduced Cecilia to her classmates as the lady helping build the new community center. The little girl's innocent kindness carried no awareness of internet controversies or public opinions. She simply believed adults could become friends. Driving home that afternoon, Cecilia remembered her own lonely childhood. Her parents had provided wealth but little affection. Success had become her language because love had always seemed uncertain. Perhaps that explained why she feared complicated families, not because they were broken, because they required vulnerability. Months passed. Public outrage over Cecilia's interview gradually disappeared, but something far more important had begun. A friendship. She and Grant spent afternoons discussing architecture, parenting, grief, business ethics, and childhood dreams while volunteering together. Grant never flirted, never pressured, never attempted to change her. He simply treated her with quiet respect. That respect slowly became something far more dangerous than attraction. It became trust. One sunny Saturday, Cecilia accompanied Grant and Marin to a local botanical garden hosting a family festival. Watching Marin excitedly identify butterflies while holding both their hands felt surprisingly natural. For a brief moment, Cecilia imagined what life might look like if she stopped protecting herself from happiness. The thought frightened her. That evening, although daylight still lingered, she admitted to herself that she had fallen in love, not despite Grant being a single father. Partly because of it, she had fallen in love with the patience, sacrifice, compassion, resilience, and unwavering devotion that fatherhood had revealed. Still, fear remained. She worried Grant had seen her interview. Surely he remembered every painful word. Eventually she gathered enough courage to ask. Grant quietly admitted he had watched it the day it aired. Cecilia felt the ground disappear beneath her. She apologized with tears filling her eyes, not because public opinion demanded it, because she finally understood how deeply wrong she had been. Grant surprised her again. He explained he never felt personally offended. People often formed opinions based on experiences they hadn't yet outgrown. The important question wasn't who someone had been yesterday. It was whether they chose to become better today. No boardroom presentation. No billion-dollar contract. No professional award had ever humbled Cecilia as deeply as those words. She began repairing more than her public image. She repaired relationships with neglected employees. She apologized to former colleagues she had unfairly judged. She established scholarships for single parents returning to college. She expanded family leave policies across her company. People assumed these decisions were clever business strategies. Only Grant knew they were acts of personal transformation. One crisp afternoon beneath bright autumn sunshine, the renovated community center officially opened. Families gathered across the courtyard. Children filled every playground, local musicians played joyful songs. The same park where Cecilia's journey had quietly begun stood only a short walk away. During the celebration, Cecilia requested a few minutes to address the crowd. She spoke without prepared notes. She admitted that several months earlier she believed strength meant protecting herself from complicated love. She confessed she had judged people she never truly understood. Then she thanked a father who had changed her life without trying to change her at all. Grant looked down, visibly overwhelmed. Many guests wiped away tears. Cecilia walked across the stage, not as a celebrated executive, but as a woman finally willing to be vulnerable. She told Grant that he had shown her success measured in profits could never equal success measured in compassion. She admitted she no longer feared becoming part of someone else's story because she had discovered that love wasn't divided by children. It multiplied through them. Grant gently took her hand. The crowd erupted into applause before he quietly embraced her. Marin rushed forward with joyful laughter and wrapped her small arms around both of them, creating the kind of family portrait no photographer could have planned. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether you believe people deserve a second chance after admitting they were wrong, or tell us about a moment when someone's kindness completely changed your perspective on life. 1 year later, under warm afternoon sunshine in the same community garden where they had first spoken, Cecilia and Grant exchanged wedding vows surrounded by friends, co-workers, volunteers, and families whose lives had crossed theirs through simple acts of kindness. There were no extravagant displays designed to impress the world. Instead, there were children's laughter, grateful smiles, heartfelt embraces, and a little girl who proudly carried flowers while beaming with happiness. Cecilia realized she had once believed love meant finding someone who fit perfectly into the life she had already planned. Instead, she discovered that real love sometimes arrives carrying scars, responsibilities, precious memories, and tiny hands that reach out with complete trust. By opening her heart instead of guarding it, she gained not only a husband but a daughter who taught her that family is built through compassion rather than perfection. Grant often said that one honest conversation could change a lifetime, and every sunny day they spent together became living proof that people are not defined forever by their worst opinions but by the courage to grow beyond them. The woman who once swore she would never marry a single dad became someone who proudly cherished every ordinary afternoon spent cheering at school events, sharing family picnics, helping with homework, and building a home filled with laughter, forgiveness, hope, and unconditional love. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember, sometimes the conversation we almost walk away from becomes the one that changes our entire life forever.